Hey, welcome to another edition of BJB Today. I'm Tim Kruger, and joining us is assistant head basketball coach at Creighton University, Al Huss. Hey, coach, how you doing?
I'm well, and you?
Very good. I guess on a personal note, are you getting all? I mean, is things slowed down as far as getting settled in here in Omaha?
Getting closer.
You're probably never there, right?
No, in our business, it's difficult to ever get too comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we hope you're comfortable for a while, coach. Okay.
Eventually here.
So let's just talk about roster construction a little bit. And I know we've had some additions, and the most recent is Conan joining the team. And I know you were instrumental in having him come in. Can you kind of share with the fans like what he brings to the table?
Well, with Owen, being out just a little bit longer than we initially anticipated with his knee scope, we obviously had a physicality void to fill on the front line. We're hoping that Karam can fill some of that void. Clearly, Owen's proven in the Big Ten, but the Karam's played in a league in the Turkish Super League, the Euro Cup, at a level that very few of our people think overseas basketball is kind of all created equal. Um, he's played at a level most of the guys that we've had that have played at Creighton, even a lot of all league guys, have never gotten to that level. So he's played minutes at a really high level against elite level players. And we hope that obviously he's still young, but we hope that he can come in and be ready to drop in there and be a lob presence on offense, be able to make a stretch three, and much in the mold of, say, like a Martin Kroppel, be able to catch some lobs, be able to run to the rim and provide some physicality as a lob catcher, but also be able to make a catch and shoot three and just be able to facilitate and run some of our stuff and our 5-out actions offensively.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's what I've been telling people when I watch film on him. It reminds me a little bit of Martine. I did see someone from a national perspective tweet out a little video of him and said, "Can you believe this guy's going to be a freshman in Creighton next year?" With his because he has some athletic tape on him. Let's put it that way.
He can do some things physically, and he's been, because he's been in the Turkish Super League, playing with, guys he's had multiple players of the year, all conference, high major players on his team. Because of that, he's been largely kind of stuck down in the dunker spot as kind of an offensive rebounder, a switcher on defense, and just kind of an energy undersized five here for the past season. But we certainly think, and if you watched some of his national team stuff over the years, and back when I was at Creighton before, I watched him play in Izmir in the U18s and then the U19s. So I mean, I'd seen him play live a couple of times. At that point, he wasn't considering college, so he wasn't a kid we pursued. But when you see kind of his skill set, it's considerably more than what he was allowed to do as a young player in the Turkish Super League, playing at the level he was playing.
How about Alexa? He finally got everything straightened out. He's in school. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, he got here and immediately got his nose broken. So we've only seen him for about 5 minutes of total workouts thus far. So I don't know that I have a huge sample size from which to judge his progress, but I think we're excited about him. He's obviously a large human. He's all of 7'1" and fairly mobile and light feet. So we're hoping that with some time he can come along and help us as well.
Both guys can do some rim protection too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I can't really speak firsthand to the Alexa rim protection piece in the U18s. A couple of summers ago, he was an elite rim protector. He struggled to protect a little bit more in the U19s this summer with the Serbian national team. And he's been in the Partizan club, which is a EuroLeague club, but he wasn't playing on the top team there. So it's difficult from a, kind of it's difficult to understand exactly where he is until we actually are able to put our hands on him here and work with him a little bit more once he gets healthy.
As far as Owen, so we're thinking kind of coin flip if he's ready to go at the start of the regular season, not the exhibitions, but the regular season.
I think everyone's excited about his progress. I think everyone feels like he's on track. But it's an injury type that there's no point, especially this time of year, there's no point in pushing the envelope. I think we'd like to see him fully recover. Uh, I know he would like to fully recover, but it's going to be about patience with him and him understanding that he's not going to come back to all league form day one that he's cleared. It's going to be a little bit of process to get back there, but Owen's got a great demeanor.
Yeah.
He's a guy that if you spend any time with him, he's super outgoing and he's done a nice job of just keeping, I think, his mental in the right place as he works through this, longer than initially anticipated process.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've been super impressed how outgoing he is. We met, and then the next time at practice, he came up to me and chatted with me a little bit. Very, very outgoing. Very, very. I didn't know these Iowa guys what to expect, but he's been very outgoing. Before we get into some other individuals on the team, I just want to talk a little bit about the schedule. And so we've got two exhibition games, which are great, both at home and against high level competition. A little bit different though in the regular season. Like normally, we get those 2 or 3 bye games and then we hit it. This year, I mean, you get the one and then boom, go to Gonzaga. So it's probably a little bit different. You've got to be more quote unquote ready to go earlier, so to speak.
Well, that's probably another reason why Karam's on our team right now. Just we're going to have some early tests, that are going to be challenging. You go to Gonzaga, we've got Kansas State, we've got Nebraska, and then you've got the Players Era, all of which are going to be full of formidable, large humans on the other end on the front line, and so we've got to be able to at least counteract that physicality on the other team with some size and some strength on our side. So yeah, we don't get to ease into it. It's all right though. I think it's more fun for the fans that way. I don't know if they like watching us beat up on 9 guarantee games like um, some of our high major peers, I guess, do. It'll be fun for us to get out there and swing away. And at the end of the day, the computer rankings, you beat these quad one teams. That's what gives you the best chance to put yourself in a position that you want to be in come March. So I think we're all excited about the opportunity. Obviously, it's difficult to win at Gonzaga. It's going to be difficult to beat Kansas State, Nebraska, the people we have to beat. But it'll be fun.
Uh, Interesting dynamic too is you're playing the exhibition game against Iowa State, then you meet them later. Like, is there? I mean, a lot of times those exhibition games, you throw a lot of people in there, a lot of combinations, see what works, what doesn't, get guys' feet wet, and so forth. How do you approach that? It's kind of a different scenario.
Mac has always been, kind of scripted in what he does in these both the secret scrimmages and the exhibition games. He wants to see certain lineups together, kind of regardless of situation and score. He's going to want to see certain actions with certain lineups. We've got a challenge ahead just to figure out who's going to create advantages for us, and so we've got some different ideas, but being able to try those out and kind of regardless of whether they're working or not, stay with certain packages. I think you'll see some of that as we try to figure it out on the offensive side, and then on the defensive side. I think everyone understands that Gone is the 4-time defensive player of the year in the Big East Conference. And, we've got to plug that gap in a variety of different ways. And so I think on the other side of the ball, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see some different on ball coverages that we haven't seen as much of in years past. Again, regardless of how one works or maybe doesn't work, I think you'll probably see us use a variety of coverages in those games just so we can get some good film and understand how the play continues after you get to one of those actions. So it'll be a challenge for us those games, and I think we've got maybe more so than in some recent years. We've got 3 or 4 positional battles that are going to come down to the last day. Which that'll be interesting as well. I think if you look at at least the last 4 or 5 years, positionally, the battles were pretty much won by the first day of official practice. You kind of knew who you had and what you had. We've got some guys that are they're squarely locked in some battles. So we'll use those exhibition games to hopefully figure out some combinations that work, and hopefully those guys can get some opportunities in front of a few people to go out there and find out if they can do it on a big stage.
I'm glad you said that because I've mentioned this before at one of the practices. I brought my brother-in-law who was here from San Diego, and he follows college basketball a little bit, but not as much as me. But he walked away and he said, I really don't know who I would pick as the five starter. The competition was that great, and he didn't mean it as a bad thing. He meant it as a good thing.
Yeah, it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, but what it really is a thing. It's just it's something that we have to manage. And obviously Fedor. I don't think anyone outside of maybe his counsel thought that he was going to get this additional time. It was in a pretty bleak place when I arrived to campus here, and for it to kind of the pendulum to swing so drastically in the other direction so quickly was a little bit of a shock to everyone. It's obviously a great thing for our basketball program, but because of that, we probably have one extra body that we maybe wouldn't have had otherwise. So those things are going to have to work themselves out, and it'll be fun. It'll make for a really spirited September and October as some of these battles are waged on the practice floor.
You talked about the battles, so you've got Josh Dix, who's a tremendous player coming in from Iowa. You have transfer Nick Graves, who's a point guard, but can play the two as well, off and on. And then you've got Ty Davis. I think probably what I saw from him late in the year, I was very excited to see him this year, and I think he's taken another step this year. And really, if you obviously you weren't here last year, but if you could see where he was last year at this time versus this year, it's so night and day. It's unbelievable how much more comfortable he is.
Yeah, and I think that position is going to go a long ways in determining how good we are. And I don't think we have an exact answer as to. There's probably situations where we play a couple of different point guards together, and maybe a situation where we don't really play a traditional point guard at all. I think all those are possibilities, but Mac's pretty good at this stuff and figuring out these combinations and who comes together with who and who plays better with who, and it'll be interesting. It'll make for some difficult conversations for the staff and some difficult decisions for Coach Mac to make. But we don't want him to get too comfortable. We got to give him some stuff to worry about.
Hey, before we get back, we're talking with assistant head coach Al Huss. So before we get back to players, you just mentioned something I want to bring up. So in your time away, I mean, obviously, you're communicating, but time away, notice any change in Mac? Anything different? Anything other than that? He's older.
His commitment to process is unwavering. So Mac is Mac. He's going to do his deal, and he's got some pretty. He's got some firm, core beliefs that he doesn't deviate from. But really, the list of those things is pretty short. He's going to require a certain level of unselfishness. He wants a certain level of pace. He wants guys to communicate at a certain level. But once you get past that, Mac's proven a number of times in his career that he's flexible enough to, to really play a variety of different ways. I mean, you compare some of the let it fly Creighton teams to some of the walk it up the floor Northern Iowa teams and run a A to B to C set almost every single time with 200 counters, all called off a play card. Those are pretty drastic differences. And I think probably the most impressive thing about Mac, aside from just the way he treats people and in general, is just that his willingness to look at things different ways and come up with different solutions to the problem. I mean, that's the one thing that I think people don't fully understand is just there's a variety of different ways to win in this game. And he's been willing over his career to try a number of different things, play different defenses, play different offenses. And I think we're at an interesting point for him. It's our job to kind of get the players ready in the fall, and then when he comes in kind of and really grabs this thing and starts running with it here at the end of September, I think you're going to find him kind of having a whole different level of intrigue and fun and all those things kind of involved in this process that's going to let him be creative and find kind of his way to just find creative solutions to both problems on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I think you're going to find him doing some unique and creative and fun things.
Yeah, if you went back, I remember a game I was at the Uni Dome, Creighton, and back when Dana was here, Creighton and Northern playing, I was just like, My God, if you saw Max teams then and then saw them now, the different styles, and it's not like he didn't have guys that he could have done. It was just the best way for him to win at that with that team, and that's like the measure of a two great coaches to be able to, take your team and beat them, and take the other team and beat the other team. That's just the way he is. A lot of guys, that can, like you said, a lot of position battles, a lot of guys that can fill in at the four, which has got to be, we went through a stretch there where we were having a hard time about 5 years ago finding, depth at that position. And now you've got guys that, you're going to have to stretch out, like Jason Green's an example that can stretch out. That's just a luxury to have. And again, like you said, sometimes it can be a curse to find enough minutes for everybody.
Yeah, that position in particular is pretty crowded because you have both the kind of more traditional kind of Mac foremen like Jackson and IT, but then you also have guys like Blake Harper, who is best with the basketball in his hands, almost point guardish. His ability to both make plays for himself and others, but he's just, if you look at his size, he's 6'7.5". He's well over 200 pounds. He's a guy, defensively, he'd probably be most comfortable at that spot. But so you got him that can slide into that position potentially at times. You've got a guy like Hudson Greer who, pops like a 2-3 athletically. He can just physically do some things that no one else in our program can do. But in addition to that, he's got that kind of 6'7", 6'8" size as well, and can really rebound the ball. I'd say he's probably pound for pound our best rebounder. And then even a guy like like Fedor could potentially play that position some. Liam McChesney could potentially play that position some. Like there's a number of guys, in our program that, in a pinch especially, can play minutes at that position. And not to mention Jason Green, who is probably a natural four, even though he played all summer at the five because we had everybody hurt and
Yeah.
gone. And then I think last season he started at three. So obviously he's versatile in his own right.
Yeah, the good thing about Jason is, and we're talking ones and fours, but Mac's offense has always been somewhat, other than the five positionless. I mean, guys move around. But the thing about Jason, what's good is he can go out and guard the two. He can go and guard the three. That's what's a key with him.
The interesting thing for this group, and the traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think is dead in a lot of ways. I think when you really break down what Mac's offense needs, and just offense in general, probably to a certain extent, what makes offense or good offense, what makes it click, and you really look at guys that can create advantage, guys that can connect. So once the advantage is created and you get two to the basketball, you can create advantage a number of different ways. If you have just a straight qualitative advantage, I'm just better than you. We haven't had a ton of those all the time physically at Creighton, but a lot of teams do, where they just come out and run isolations to get two to the basketball. You have guys that can create those advantages in pick and rolls, off ball actions because of their skill level and their athleticism. Then you have those connector guys that kind of once the closeout happens, they make the one more pass or the one more pass. And then you have guys that finish. I think our biggest challenge is going to be figuring out exactly how we create those advantages. Right? We've done it with Kalkbrenner with a lot of angle seals that pull a third defender into play, and if you don't play him with a third defender, then then you're going to be in a world of trouble. The lob game for 10 plus years now has put pressure on the rim and drawn extra defenders. The pick and roll game and kind of that NBA get action, we sometimes call it hit and chase, where we throw it to a big and we chase it off. That's been a staple of kind of what's made us good over the past decade or so. So we'll have to figure out who's great, whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't really matter who can get two to the basketball, because you can't be a great offense unless you get two to play the ball, and then you pass it to the open man with connectors to find hopefully a guy that can finish the play either at the rim or at the arc. And so our big challenge, I think we've got plenty of play finishers. I think we got plenty of connectors. It's like, okay, why, who are going to be the guys that, and what combinations create those advantages to create high value opportunities for us uh, on the offensive side of the ball, and then maybe even more importantly, can those five guys that create advantages at the highest levels, can they get stops on the other end? Because we don't have Ryan Kalkbrenner back there. We've got to get a little bit more creative in how we trick people on the defensive side.
Right. Um, you mentioned the terminology. I know you brought in a lot of new terminology, and I know in talking with Mitch Ballack, he's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of the go-between now to bring in the new terminology and get to the guys like the old terminology and kind of mend them together." How has that gone so far?
I mean, I tell people this all the time. When you're working for an offensive genius and you're largely in charge of offense, it's sometimes maddening because you've put a lot of effort into it, and Mac's forgotten more than I've ever known. So you put a lot of effort in and think you have this great solution, and then he looks at you like you're crazy and pulls something out from 10 years ago, and you just kind of look at it and go, yeah, well, there's a reason why he is who he is and I am who I am, because he has a better answer and he just thought about it for 30 seconds. So that's kind of the way it works with when you're working for Mac on the offensive side of the ball. He's got a pretty good idea of what he wants to do, but the beautiful thing is when I have something I'm really passionate about, typically he'll hear me out. He'll hear me out. He won't always concede or give in to me and do it exactly how I want, but he'll listen to me typically. And so it's fun to kind of have that, uh, to be on this side of it again, where I'm the idea guy and I don't necessarily have to make the final choice.
Yeah. Uh, One more thing before we have a final question, but I want to go back to HUD a little bit. Last year, fans like it's January and already they're looking ahead to next year, worrying about so and so leaving and so leaving, who we got coming in. And I kept telling people, I go, look, Hudson Greer is elite, man. And they're like, yeah, but I saw my team. You got to understand, he had McNeely and Flagg on his team. Okay, it's not like he was playing with a bunch of schmucks. Okay, and Queen also. I knew his athleticism. I think that just jumps out at you when you see him and the things he can do. And, he's put together pretty good for a freshman.
I think these guys, now clearly I wasn't involved in the recruitment process and I hadn't seen him play a ton at the high school level or in AAU, just a game or two. Um, but I can tell you, I think that the thing that surprised, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but just as I regurgitate what's been told to me by other members of the staff, I think the most surprising thing was just how physically prepared he was when he got here. And that physical preparedness is kind of uh, a double sided deal. You look at it, it's number one, do you have the physical attributes to allow you to do those things? Are you athletic enough, strong enough, flexible enough, tough enough? And then it's like, all right, the mental side of it, do you embrace contact? Are you tough enough to put that into practice when you're a little bit fatigued because you're going to be going a little bit harder than normal? And then maybe the last piece of it's most important is the game going too fast for you because you're mentally just trying so hard to keep up that it's difficult then to make decisions and reads. And I think uh, Hudson's time at Montverde playing for Coach Boyle, uh, just like it did Ryan Nimhard when we had him, it just puts those guys in a completely different space to come in and be prepared to play on day one. They've been coached hard. They've been a part of complex systems. They've played against great players. And then the physical piece, like they just, the athleticism, the strength, all that. That's when you go see a Montverde practice the first time, there's going to be 4 or 5 bodies at that practice, at a Coach Boyle practice that there aren't going to be in the Big East. So it's just a total different deal for those guys that get that experience at that high level before they get here, and it's served Hudson well. He's had, in my opinion, he's probably been the biggest surprise this summer. Not because I didn't think he was talented, but just because I think freshmen,
Right.
they can struggle at times, and I think maybe most notably he defends better than I think any of us thought that he was capable of initially. And he can really rebound. I think everybody knew he could make shots. Um, I think our challenge to him is, uh, be more than a shot maker. Go be a great rebounder. Go be a great defender. Be a guy that can touch the paint on a long closeout and make a pass to another player in a better position. And that's kind of been his challenge to not define himself just as a shooter, because I think he's so much more.
I lied. I got one more. Graves and Swartz, you can see the talent and so forth, the transfers that came in, but they seem like that you're going into a new system. It's that like you can see them just that half second they're thinking a little bit like, wait, what do I got to do here? Would you agree with that a little bit?
I think initially, I think really the last week or so of the end of the summer, and then the first week we've been here, I think um, Nick has really turned the corner. I think, and I don't necessarily think it was a physical thing. I think it's, as you alluded to, it was a little bit of a mental thing. He was being a little passive and overthinking some things, and I think that really cut into his aggressiveness. But I think he's really made a step forward. I mean, Austin is super talented. Has played a lot of minutes as a freshman at Miami, obviously on a poor team and a poor situation after Coach Larinaga retired, and abruptly, kind of as the season started, that put everybody in a tough spot uh, last season. But yeah, I mean, he's probably our most talented basket getter. And much like I said about Hudson, like the challenge for him is just not defining himself just as a shooter and a scorer, learning how to do more things and taking pride in doing more things and assigning value to doing those other things, because he's super talented as a basket scorer, and he's a guy that we're going to need to score some baskets for us.
Last one, I'll let you get out of here. So I just want to talk about this because just a 2 minute, we could talk about it for an hour, but I just want to talk just a couple minutes. Uh, when you were here before, you were the forefront of the NIL and so on and so forth. How has everything changed with the revenue sharing and so forth? I think fans are really confused about it. Maybe you can clear some of the stuff up. Like, how is it all working?
Well, I mean, number one, it's everything's gone in house now, so it's, in theory at least, a little bit more manageable. Um, it's one of those deals that no one still knows exactly how it's working and exactly what the rules are. But I think that it's at least given us a little bit more of a just a I don't even know the right way to say it. Like I think across the board, we're about as even as we're going to get in this space. People, it's at least run in house. That there's gone are the days of saying you're going to do one thing and then doing something else. Everything's contracted. Uh, it's a little bit more uniform now, and although we're far from it being completely under control and normal, it's more normal than it was.
Did you? What's the biggest difference, I guess, between 2 years ago and?
What the university now pays it out directly, so we're not reliant on a third party anymore. And there's some revenue share limits, and there's this new governing body, the College Sports Commission, that's approving external deals over a certain value to make sure they're fair market value. That's been widely covered in the news, and there's all the problems and the different circumstances that arise out of a new governing body trying to be in charge of something when it comes to college sports. So I think it's already been challenged a couple of times, and some of the restrictions on that side have been loosened a bit. But college basketball coaches are resourceful. We'll play by rules that are given to us, but everyone's still searching for an advantage. And there's schools that have advantages. There's schools that don't. We're not a professional sports league. We're college sports, and no matter how long it goes, they're never going to come up with a way to make it all even. There's gonna be some schools and teams that have advantages over others, and that's why guys like me have jobs. We got to try to find advantages on one side, and then you got to try to, if you're disadvantaged in a certain area, you've got to try to make up for it in another.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Coach, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch you on down the road. Thank you.
Thank you much.